I'm here again with attorney Andrew D. Stine from West Palm Beach. We'll be doing our second hangout in a series talking about criminal defense in Palm Beach County, Florida and South Florida. In our last hangout, we learned a lot about defense attorney Andrew Stine and what it's like to practice in West Palm Beach. Today we're going to talk more about the type of case where Andy really made a difference for his client and his passion to do so. I'll be your host for today. My name's Renee. And how you doing, Andy?
I'm doing fine, thank you, Renee.
So maybe you can share with the audience this interesting case where you really made a difference in your client's life, or one you are especially passionate about.
Renee, there's been so many cases over the last decade or so that many of them stick out. However, I think due to the severity of one specific case, it holds a lot of water with me. What I mean by that is it was a Guatemalan national, meaning a person from Guatemala who's not in the United States legally, an illegal immigrant. He's here, he's in Martin County, he's driving 95 south, and it's a rain-soaked morning. And what happens is he crosses over the median due to hydroplaning. When he crosses over the median going south, he hits an oncoming vehicle going north. Unfortunately, the individual in the vehicle going north is killed. With that case, law enforcement shows up. They show up. They investigate the case. They believe that the Guatemalan national from Martin County heading into Palm Beach County, Florida, was under the influence of drugs or alcohol. They do a alcohol test. They find out that he's under the influence. He's charged with DUI manslaughter. During the investigation of the accident, they never read the young man his Miranda rights. Whenever there's a DUI accident or any accident case in the state of Florida, they must read Miranda rights after they complete the accident report. So law enforcement comes on scene. They gain all the evidence and all of the information about the accident. After they do that, they must turn their hat and they must read Miranda to the driver. They must tell the driver that they're turning the investigation from an accident into a criminal investigation. They never did that. When I got the case, it was about 2 months old. No work was done on the file. The public defender's office had the case. I immediately went through all of the evidence, met with witnesses, and realized that my client was never Mirandized. The significance of that is they couldn't put my client behind the wheel because it was early morning hours, the conditions were very bad, and nobody seen who was behind the wheel of the vehicle that crossed the median and struck the other vehicle. The other vehicle was driven by a well-known man who owned many Krispy Kreme donuts in Boca Raton and throughout South Florida. So there was a lot of emotion in the case, and I filed a motion to suppress pursuant to the accident report privilege, meaning law enforcement didn't follow the proper protocol and the proper laws under the state of Florida. At the time, INS, the Immigration and Naturalization Service, which is now also Homeland Security, had a hold on my client. So when I got the case, he was not only looking at 15 years in the Florida State Prison, but then immediate deportation afterwards. I filed my motion to suppress. The day that the motion was going to be heard, the state conceded, and the state agreed that they were in error, that law enforcement was in error. They null-pros the case, and that's a fancy Latin term for dismissing or abandoning the charges. Because the state dismissed and/or null-prossed the case, my client walked away from a DUI homicide or a DUI manslaughter. Why that sticks out in my mind is for several reasons. One, obviously the significance of the penalty that my client was facing, coupled with the fact that he would have been immediately deported after serving about 85% of the 15 years in prison. After he was released on the criminal case, I was able to convince INS, Homeland Security, to take the hold off him, which they did in a reasonable amount of time, which was about a week later. He was then released from the county jail, and he went on to get himself in a position where he is now a citizen of the United States. So that case means a lot to me, because not only was I able to help an individual who was facing 15 years in prison, but it also preserved his right to stay in America and to become a United States citizen. And for those reasons, I think that's one of the more outstanding cases that stays with me on a daily basis. Another important part of that case was the efforts that my law office and myself put into that case, because the file basically sat dormant for about 60 days until finally an experienced person like myself came onto the case, and we were able to really go through the evidence. And that's the way that all DUI, DUI homicide, DUI manslaughter cases must be looked at. Because at the end of the day, I am here to preserve the Constitution, and I'm here to preserve the laws of Florida. It doesn't matter what the person has been charged with, and it doesn't matter who the person is. And I take all of my cases very, very seriously, and I work diligently and effectively on the file. But that case had obviously two heads, so to speak, not only the criminal part, but the immigration part. So I think that case stands out greatly till this day.
Well, you were able to do the best for your client. He's not in jail. He became a citizen. You know, I think there's a harsh reality behind this event, but in the end, you did what you were supposed to do. Have you been in touch with this client of yours, or have you seen him over the last few years? He's doing well?
Yes. To answer the first part of your, I guess, question, there is a harsh reality about the job of being a criminal defense lawyer. And that harsh reality is that individuals are charged with crimes. And there's many times other individuals, other citizens, other people of the community who've been affected. And that's the reality of being a criminal defense lawyer. However, my job is to preserve the liberty, preserve the Constitution, and preserve the laws of Florida. And that's what I did in this case. And as to the second part of your question, yes, I have been in contact with him. As a matter of fact, he has come by my place of residence on several occasions, has said hi. I have purchased plants from him, indoor trees, because he's in the landscape business. So while we haven't remained close friends, we have communicated, and we've been communicating since this incident. And it's very rewarding that, to me, that he was able to become a citizen of the United States, and he was also, or he's also now a business owner. And he does have a family at this time, and he has children here in America, obviously in Florida, Palm Beach County. And so, with that being said, while the death of the other individual is significant, and I don't want to downplay that because that person lost his life, and he was a father, he was a husband. My job is to preserve the liberty of those charged with criminal offenses, and that's what I do on a daily basis. And it is rewarding just to see that this young man did turn this event, which was a tragic event, into a positive. And so for that, it also stands out in my mind that even though individuals are charged with criminal offenses, including manslaughter and homicide, it doesn't make them a horrible person or a bad person. It was a bad decision. I don't think anyone gets up in the morning and says, hey, I'm going to go out and commit a crime today. I'm going to go out and commit a DUI, manslaughter. Series of events lead up to the point where sometimes criminal acts occur. It doesn't make them evil, and I stand behind them to preserve their liberties. That's what I do.
We didn't talk about this earlier, but where else can you practice? Is it only in the state of Florida, or are there other jurisdictions that you can practice law?
Well, it's an interesting question. I practice throughout the state of Florida, meaning in every county in the state of Florida, because I'm obviously a Florida state attorney. I'm also a federal bar attorney, and I've practiced federal cases throughout the state of Florida, and I've also practiced in Boston, Massachusetts. That is because the original case originated in Palm Beach County in the Southern District of Florida. It was a very large oxycodone trafficking case. So it originated here in Palm Beach County, and the debts from the sale of the oxycodone actually were in Boston. So jurisdiction eventually led to Boston, and I practiced in Boston. So I practiced throughout all of the federal courts in the United States, and I practiced throughout the entire state of Florida.
Well, that's good to know for our audience. It really sounds like you made a tremendous difference in the life of that individual that was facing many years in jail. If you've been charged with a crime in Palm Beach County or South Florida, please call defense lawyer Andrew D. Stine at 561-880-4300, or you can visit the firm at www.andrewdstine.com. Andrew, it was a pleasure to see you again.
It was nice to talk to you today, Renee.
You know, and it's always good to hear you share your experience and knowledge with the audience. I want to thank everyone for participating today, and invite our audience to come back next week when again we'll be discussing an interesting topic pertaining to criminal defense law in the state of Florida. Remember, call Stine or do the time.